The dust had not yet settled from the last storm. Rust-colored clouds lingered low over the Martian plains as John Mercer trudged forward, the weight of his exosuit pressing down like an iron cage. His boots left deep impressions in the soft regolith, each step kicking up ghostly plumes of red that vanished into the wind. Mercer was a salvager, a loner by trade and nature. Ever since the last human outpost on Mars went dark, the planet had become a graveyard of technology, broken dreams and whispers of a colonization effort long abandoned. Mercer, with his scarred helmet and patched-together rover, was one of the few who still dared to call Mars home. He did it not out of courage, but because Earth had long since stopped feeling like one. He moved toward the ruin of an old hydroponic dome, half collapsed under the weight of a storm decades past. The air inside was thin but breathable through his filters. He was looking for power cells, anything to barter with back at the crater market. That's when he saw her, a flash of motion, too small to be a person, too smooth and bright to be Martian wildlife. What little there was. Mercer raised his scanner, the screen flickering with static. The blip was faint. Whatever it was alive. He crouched low, careful to make no sudden movements. From behind a tangle of metal beams and a torn polymer tarp, a pair of eyes stared back at him. Large, luminous, and trembling with fear. She looked humanoid, but miniature. Barely 2 feet tall, her skin shimmered like the sheen of oil on water. She clutched a jagged piece of metal like a weapon, her thin arms shaking. "Hey," Mercer said, voice softened by the modulator in his suit. "I'm not here to hurt you." She didn't understand him. Of course she didn't. She shrank back, making a high-pitched whimpering sound. He sat down cross-legged, placing his scanner and pack on the ground, hands open. Slowly, he reached into his side pouch and pulled out a ration bar. He unwrapped it and laid it gently on the ground. She watched him for several long minutes, not moving. Then, like a frightened animal, she darted forward, snatched the bar, and retreated just as fast. Mercer smiled behind his visor. For the next 3 days, Mercer returned to the dome. He brought food, water, bits of cloth. He never tried to touch her, never moved too close. Every time she crept out a little further, watched him longer, he started calling her Nova, for the way her skin caught the light. One afternoon, as the sun dipped below the craggy Martian horizon, she approached him. Slowly. She held out the broken ration wrapper from the first day. "Nova?" he said, tapping his chest. "John." She mimicked the gesture. "Joe." That moment, it was like the first breath after a drowning. A connection formed, thin as thread, strong as hope. Mars wasn't just home to salvagers and ghosts. There were others. Mercenaries, black market tech hunters, even Earth syndicates looking for alien artifacts. When word got out that something non-human was living out here, Mercer knew trouble would follow. He started moving camp every night, carried Nova wrapped in a heat blanket inside his rover. She grew bolder, exploring the cab, pressing buttons, giggling at the hissing hydraulics. One night, they were camped inside the husk of a transport ship. Nova curled beside him, breathing steady. He heard the sound before he saw the lights. Drones. Mercer shut everything down, powered off his comms, held his breath. Nova stirred. He placed a hand gently over her, and for the first time, she didn't flinch. They left the rover behind. Too dangerous. Too loud. They traveled on foot across the rust dunes. Mercer rigged a sling so Nova could rest on his back when tired. She sang sometimes, soft, melodic hums that made the Martian winds seem almost friendly. They spoke more, learned from each other. Her language was a mix of tones and gestures. He taught her names for things: rock, sky, danger, safe. She taught him hers: thrall, which meant shelter; Vika, which meant friend. They found a cave where ancient alien markings lined the walls. Nova traced them with reverence. Mercer recorded every inch. They weren't just symbols. They were a story. Her story. They came at dawn, 6 men in black suits and sealed helmets. Syndicate trackers? Mercer had no weapons, just his fists and a flare gun. He stood in front of Nova. "Give her to us," the leader barked. Mercer shook his head. "She's not yours." The fight was short, brutal. Mercer held them off long enough for Nova to run, long enough to fire the flare into the cave roof, collapsing it behind her. They beat him, left him bleeding in the red dirt. But they didn't find her. Nova found him 2 days later, half dead. She dragged water to him, used her body heat to keep him warm. When he woke, she placed her small hand on his chest and said, "Vika?" "Friend," he cried. They were bonded now, not by blood, not by species, but by survival, by choice. Nova's powers, telekinetic, faint healing abilities, began to surface. Her kind had not just fled something, they had been hunted. Together, they decided to find the source of the markings in the cave, to seek others like her. Months passed. They avoided humans, built a shelter underground, trained, learned. And then one day, on the edge of the Noctis Labyrinthus, they found it. A hidden structure buried in stone, humming with power. A beacon. Nova activated it. The sky split open. A message, not just a signal. An answer. Her people were coming. Mercer looked at her, eyes wet. "You'll go?" She placed her hand in his, shook her head. "Not without you." He didn't know what that meant, not yet, but he knew one thing: he'd follow her to the stars.